you. So nice to be back. First of all, I wanted to talk a little bit. It's a real pleasure to be sponsoring this particular event because we're here to kind of help you guys as you grow into, improving your distribution, what you're doing, and what you're offering down on the retail floors of LRSs and the government liquor stores, et cetera. And one of the things that we do, and we're kind of unique to the market, is that we are really one of the bigger players when it comes to repackaging. So we've got both manual and automated lines that are fully adaptable to handling any of your needs when it comes to doing your variety pack. So if it's a 6-pack up to a 30-pack, we can do it for you. And we also have the unique situation and opportunity to offer you warehousing services and transportation services to the BC Liquor Distribution Branch Distribution Center with warehousing. So we can warehouse all of your production materials and your finished goods until you get those orders to flow into the liquor board. So very proud to be here, and feel free to come on over and talk to me anytime today. So thanks very much, and on to the show.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. All right, let's introduce the panel. So we have Dmitry, only one name I goes with, Batishchev. Dmitry's a category manager for beer, Asian spirits, and sake. He's been with the BCLS for 6 years. And prior to taking on Asian spirits, did refreshment beverages category as well, but not anymore. Troy, director of Angry Otter Co-op Group. He's been in the liquor industry for 14 years and 11 years previously at the BCLC, right? And Troy is also the current buyer for beer and RTD for Angry Otter. And then we have Jared Brown, the director of liquor operations for Mid-Island Consumer Services Cooperative, who's coming in and out in one day because he got a brand new child at home. So thank you for spending the time with us.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, so let's get started. So to the panel, what are your thoughts on the current beer market in BC?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I was hoping to go last so you can see how these guys answer first. But yeah, so from the way we see the market, there's obviously been a lot of changes. So if you really look back 4 years ago, where for us for BCL, your categories was just the darling of the market, right? We grew high double digits. I think in 2017, 2018, we're up like 40% in the craft market, which was great. But things have changed. And changed then we had a COVID, which created a little bit of a bump up and down for us. And now we're seeing the market for us coming back to more of a pre-COVID levels, right? So you see the distribution within the pack formats, our sales shares returning back to pre-COVID format levels. We've seen in terms of styles and preferences, consumers returning back to what they've drank before. Now, if I want to be more specific, the summer has been a little bit of a tale of two ends for us as well. So the Q1 for our fiscal year was a tough one. The Q2 was a reversal, if you want to call it that way. So looking into next year, again, if I want to predict, which I don't have a good track record predicting, we do see softness and much more modest growth rates for this category into next year. And in beer in total. So if I talk in beer in total, so it's not just craft, but national commercial brands and value and everybody else. So we do see more challenges. Plus, given where the market is going from just overall market conditions, inflation and employment, everything else, which will define where we're going to be at this time next year.
Thanks, Dmitry. Thanks everybody for being here. So how do I look at the craft beer market? Seeing it develop a lot over the last 3 years. One thing I appreciate with myself of only being in the retail sector for a little over 3 years. So the growth that we've seen in the craft beer section has been huge. As we've acquired more stores, we've continued to add more into the craft section as well as more into the RTD section based on what the consumers want. So that's kind of what we look at with the craft, and it's also geographically by area. So I see the craft beer market really, you go back about 15 years ago where the BC wine was. I'm seeing you guys there about now. And I think you got to follow that trend of what you saw a lot with the BC wine. You see a lot more consolidating, a lot more changes. So I think if you really look back at what the BC wine market went through over the last 12, 15 years, I think you guys are probably going to be going down that same road, having some people doing exceptionally well, others being acquired. And it really just comes down to quality and the guest preference, because when I was at Molson prior, there was a lot of brand loyalty, and I don't see that with your consumers. It's very fickle. There's not a lot of brand loyalty in the craft beer market. And that would be a challenge I would throw it to you guys, is how do you create that brand loyalty within your brand? Because we're continually changing our craft beer market in our stores based on what the guests are wanting. So we listen to our guests. At the end of the day, they pay my bills and allow me to continue to grow and expand. So that's kind of where I see the craft industry.
Mirror some of the comments that Dmitry and Troy both said. It's a market that's in transition. What I'm waiting to see is, excuse me, see what's some of these newcomers, if they're going to make it, if these smaller breweries that are just doing in-house production, if they're going to go to retail, what that looks like from a chain side. I'll get into a bit more sales and some of the other questions. We talked a bit about inflation, who's going to take price, who doesn't take price. That's going to affect some of the retail space and shelf space that we decide. Everything's going up. So at some point, everybody has to take some margin on it. And then what will that do to each brand sales and then some category sales as well? As cost of goods go up, maybe some of these high hop, some of the double hop stuff that are already $7-8 are now $10, $11, $12. Maybe that market disappears. What's going to happen with glass? Are bombers going to survive? Is glass even going to survive? Overall, I think there's a lot of breweries at similar points in the maturation process. As Dmitry said, there's a lot of growth over that 3-4 years, and there's a lot of breweries that are trying to get from maybe the local LRS to get into having those chain conversations. Who's going to be successful? Who's going to do it? And it basically comes down to capital. Who's got the money and the people power to make that next step? And in short, there's look around the room, there's people standing at the back. There's a lot of people that want a piece of this pie, and the pie just hasn't got any bigger, right? So we as buyers have to sharpen our game, and as producers and sales and vendors, you got to sharpen your game as well. Otherwise you're not going to make it on the shelf.
No. All right. So based on those comments and the maturing market, what are you looking for from a BC brewery to be a good partner in chain retail? Troy.
Well, the co-op model is really working with one another, and it's about having a win-win, working with each other. So with myself, I look at people that I can work with that I appreciate working with in relationships. As you've been in the market, as everybody knows, once you're in the liquor industry, you've been in it for life. I look at, first of all, what does their guests want? And that's really what it comes down to. And then I look at shelf space. And one of the things I know that maybe some of the larger craft breweries were not happy with was I limited a lot of SKU counts. And to do that, I did that because I wanted to make room for everybody. I geographically look at areas. So when we're in the Okanagan, I do everything I can to go around to breweries and try their beers and find products that are good, so I can get that on the shelf in the local markets. We're about community, and that's who co-op is. So we try to give back to a lot of that stuff. So I try to work within the communities. I also try to look with people that have got great brands and have a good following. I worked with some craft breweries that have made amazing product. And then you guys change your brewer, and that destroys you. Because I can taste it within 1 or 2 batches. I've had lots of conversations with craft breweries, some of the brewmasters. I had a favorite IPA from a craft brewery, and I'm like, hey, like it's really changed. It's changed like twice. And the brewmaster is like, yeah, it'd be great if I had a recipe. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So brewmasters really do make a difference in your business. And again, you go back to the winemakers, and when you really start echoing some of those things, it's just like you got some amazing, like let's go back to the Howard Soon days of Sandhill. Like those are amazing wines. Brand's not as big anymore. Howard retired. So it really comes down to making sure you got some great product that people want. They can get some loyalty behind it, and then it's working. For me, and I know, and from everybody here on this panel, I have to be 100% above board. So for me, looking for craft breweries, I have to do things within the logistics, because I'm audited on a regular basis. I was audited a couple times a week for the first 6 months after we acquired Elkanah. And here's how the biggest joke is. I can't break your 4-pack down because I got written up on it. It's against the law. But that was the Vancouver liquor inspector that did that. So I said, the greatest news is you don't need to go call in any other store, or just photocopy this and hand it into every single, just don't even bother walking in the store, just hand it in. It's not my idea. It's what everybody does in the industry. So I have to do everything I can. And I've had lots of craft breweries and major guys go, hey, I've got a great lawyer. I'm like, that's not a my fight. That's a you fight. I have to follow the liquor law because I get audited all the time. And for me, it's tough, and it's frustrating as hell. Because I just want, all I ever ask for is just be on a level playing field. I just want to compete with the same guy down the street the same way. That's all I want to do. And I know a lot of people appreciate having to be above board because it makes things a lot easier. And you have a better business model with that. But yeah, so that's what I look for.
All right. Troy stole my co-op work together line, so I'm going to have to spitball it. Basically, I'm looking for consistency from quality and selection through to sales and service. We're all trying to grow in our existing markets and expand in other markets. Having a consistent horse, so to speak, to hitch our wagon to is the preference of a chain. The local LRS might carry all your one-offs and seasonal stuffs because it's down the street, but that format does not work for the chains. Again, it's ultra competitive. We got people standing in the back there. It's ultra competitive on both sides of the equation, you guys, and then on the chain retail side. So whoever is consistent with sales calls at the stores, quality and quantity of product, get the listings. Just with familiar faces, I see Dave. When we buy a one-off, it doesn't turn, it's gone. Laura, you're up next. It doesn't work, you're gone. Jeff, you're up next, and it's whoever's next at the door. Troy mentioned look at people. I'm pretty famous for complaining about the amount of reps of you people that I sit and talk to and take meetings with and Zoom and Teams and stuff. But that works. Those names I just mentioned are faces that I see. You fax me or send me an email of your cool beers. It's on the bottom of the pile. I don't know who you are. I don't know if you're going to come back and pick it up if it doesn't sell. I don't know if you're going to the stores. Tell them that story about, excuse me, why this beer is so good and why we should carry it. The stores need to hear that. The key people need to hear that. That's great. You tell it to me, but if you don't, especially on the island for the mainland beers, if you don't have boots on the ground, whether it's an agency or somebody that worked for you telling us that story about the beer, I'm not going to buy it. I'll buy VIB or Phillips or Hoyne or whoever's on the island because the boots are there and it's local. Victoria's farther, we're Nanaimo based. Victoria's farther away from Nanaimo than where we're sitting right now. But the people on the island is those island beers. So if you want that island market, you need to have somebody there telling the story.
Thank you. So for BCL, really, if you step back for us, the game plan doesn't, if you look again into next year, the game plan doesn't change that much. In fact, my former boss once accused me of being mechanical, but at least you know that you're going to get some consistency with me. So, you know how we look at our SKUs. Most of you guys been through review models, through all those things. None of that's going to change. So it's there to stay. With me, you get transparency. We can have debates whether that's fair or not fair, but at least you know what to expect. So with that in mind, again, given who we are and who we report to, given what our obligations are, that's not going to change. We're still going to work within those parameters. We make changes, maybe pivots, adjustments, just like we did through COVID when we did a little bit more with larger pack formats, a little less with singles, right? So those things will happen, but to the large extent, I'm not going to tell you right now anything that most of you have heard from me before. So it's still the same review process. It's still the same objectives in terms of hitting the targets that are written to your approval letters. It's back to what the guy said at the store level, making sure that you're at the stores and you tend to your products. I've just went through an exercise with a large supplier, very large supplier, where I had 12 stores that didn't know who their rep is. I mean, that's to me is almost unacceptable. It's unacceptable that the store manager is asking me who's my rep is, and it's a large brand. It's not a 2 SKU brand. It's a really large brand. So that's to me, that's just self-explanatory. And lastly, if you want, I always try to give you something specific. If I want to be specific, I'm looking for more best before dates. Like that should be now a part of your business. Just yesterday, we had a debate at the head office trying to figure out how fresh this beer is, because the rep is telling our store one thing, and that's beer been on the shelf for already 6 months, and we're trying to figure out what's the deal with it. So that's one, that's simple, that's easy, simple, but it makes our life so much easier. That stamp on best before production date, that makes our conversation is so much more easier, and it's just easier to work with.
Great. Thank you, guys. New things. What BC or beer in general trends are you excited about? Show us all the enthusiasm.
I'm excited about less trends. That's what I'm excited about. A fall back to the mean, a focus on quality over quantity. Curious to see I was talking to some of the people downstairs, what the good for you push that we're seeing in other sectors does to craft beer. We've seen a lot of non-alc. Obviously, there's some huge non-alc growth, but you look at wine, spirits, RTDs, the low sugar, low cal, but still relatively full flavor. There's actually some decent red wines that are 8-9% still full flavor. We're not seeing that yet in beer. There's some non-alcs. There's some people that are playing in that kind of 4% range, but you look at the wines, the reds from 15% down to 9%. So we're talking almost 50% off that alcohol. So will we see a 3% full flavor IPA or something like that? Because that's where the craft has lost to that RTD and good for you category. And non-alc, I think, has climbed back some of it, but there's still a lot of drinkers there that want to maybe have a couple 5% and a 3 instead of just having those options of 5.5, 6, whatever, depends on your style of beer, and 0. So maybe something in between there. And yeah, less trends. Go with what you know, back to the core, back with what's working. Yeah, I don't know if everybody needs to make 6 hazies. I'm just saying.
Okay, so again, for BCL, so I'll give you 2. So one might sound a little counterintuitive. I'm excited about customer going back to on-premise, and I'll explain why. If you go back and look at 4 years ago, amongst all other dynamics that were working in your favor, it was just the consumer was enjoying what they like everywhere, right? So now going back to, and I have friends that manage bars, having people going back to and trying, because that particular friend, he has got a couple of you guys on tap, and it's flying. It's flying. It's exciting to see consumer buying those products now at the bars and restaurants, because that's another touch point, another point for them to get familiar with new products and try something else outside of maybe national brands that's been there all the time. So, and that's make that job easier for us to sell that 6-pack than the 12-pack of that product to them. So that's one. And two is, looking back at BCBA that just wrapped up, there were some names that I've never thought before. So I am actually pretty excited about innovation. So there's innovation in terms of brands and with the breweries that are popping up and becoming more relevant. And also, if you look at the list of all the categories and submissions and products that won, it was exciting to see, because some of them to be honest with you, have never tried before, and it was great to see them. It's great to see those brand names gaining recognition. So to me, that's the second one that's exciting, and I think it'll get even more exciting as the market gets tougher, and you guys will be forced to be a little more different, a little more exciting, which again, for us, for the retailers, then it makes our job easier from just standpoint of us providing consumer an exciting assortment.
Yeah, kind of echoing both. It's actually good to be the third spot. Can I stay here? Yeah, I'd agree. It's not as much innovation. I know there's some craft breweries that are doing like 100 SKUs within the year, and I can tell you right now, not 100 of them are great. So just focus on, like, if you're one of the larger craft breweries, you might have five SKUs on my shelf. And the reason it's 5 SKUs, it's usually why I max it out, is because if you look at any door, it fits 5 SKUs. So if you are doing innovation, and one thing you're going to realize, and Dmitry probably knows this because you get pitched already from the big guys, that a lot of them are delisting a ton of product. Back in the days of taking 60 SKUs and throwing it at the wall and hoping to get a 3% lift are gone, because you got 5 SKUs, you got 3 horses that you're going to tie your thing up to. You got one you're going to have as a seasonal, and you want to try to flip the other one. You can't bring another one into my store unless you take the other one out. So if you're bringing something in, make sure it's good, because there's only so much room. What are we at for craft breweries? Oh, I know it was at one point over 250, but 220. So 220 of you. I get emails on a regular basis, and I've got the best beer. So just everybody stand up and just tell everybody I've got the best beer, because I get that on a regular frickin' basis. Your beer is hot cakes, selling like hotcakes. Compared to what? So, innovation is good. I love some of the innovation that's come out. Keep it small, rotate it through. Don't launch 100 SKUs of new flavor. Maybe pick 2 a month. It's probably more than enough. And just move through it, because my biggest mandate to my managers is, if somebody brings in a new SKU, perfect. They buy out the other one, or we dock 55 the old one back. Or fine, we'll bring it in. You might not have it when I sell out of this other product you sold me. So got to understand, like, just as much as you guys have bills to pay, I have to have cash flow going, as I got to continue to keep growing and expanding. As we just bought 26 gas bars, cash flow is important to me. So I have product that needs to go out. If it doesn't go out, you're just sitting, you're collecting dust, and I'm probably not going to buy again. So when you're talking about innovation, make sure it's going to move, make sure it's going to rotate. Talk to the manager if it doesn't. Bring something else that does.
Just because it doesn't exist doesn't mean it needs to.
Yellow Dog team, we need to cancel the hot cake stout. All right, let's go a little bit granular here. When you have SKUs, so these core brands and stuff you're looking at and you're evaluating them, what does a good SKU performance look like to you?
All right. So again, back to being consistent. So again, most of you know our sales targets are that we talk about, right? So when you pitch a SKU that it's been on the market, but we just haven't sold before, make sure that you're prepared to translate some of those sales to the metric that we're using. So that's number one. Again, it's going back to our financial objectives that are for all of us who run the business, profitable businesses. So that's number one. Two, then really look at again, nothing that new you hadn't heard before. It's a full business plan around that particular SKU or brand or whatever you guys are pitching or group of SKUs. Because what I don't want to have is take a SKU and then figure out that it's out of date. I don't have date codes on it, and then I'm recalling out of 60 stores, and it's blowing up, and then we have this mess, right? So it's starting with the business plan that shows that you have enough support for the product, it's going to sell, and then following through to price promotions and store support and tastings and everything else. Again, there's nothing changed. Nothing changed from what we look at when I took over the category 6 years ago to what right now to what we're going to next year. It's going to continue to along those lines, and we're just going to be using the targets that we set forth. They're going to change a little bit, get adjusted up and down depending on the market, but it's important that you guys pay attention to those. And when you pitch something, it's not I hope it sell, right? Not one of those pitches, or I know it'll sell, but you haven't sold even a 6-pack of it yet. It's something that has meat behind it to prove what you're pitching us.
So to answer the question on a sales target, I can't, because I've got stores that are $1 million and I got stores that are $14 million. So what a $1 million store to a SKU is to a $14 million store is drastically different. It also depends on the size of the store. So how much room do I have? So there's a lot of that stuff. When we look at SKUs, everybody here, I think I probably pretty much reached out to everybody. If you haven't, I can give you my card after, but we have a tasting panel. And the tasting panel, we get 3 samples. I try every one personally. It's 2 sips. I always tell people if I drink half your beer, it was outstanding. But I try to get through 12 to 15. I only drink Fridays and Saturdays generally. So I try to get through those during on Fridays and Saturdays so I can try them. There's myself and there's 4 others. So the other 2 beer get split between 2 different people, and everybody has a different preference of what they like. But like I'm an IPA guy and a hazy guy, so I don't mind the nine hazies. But one of the other guys on the panel is a massive Pilsner and Kolsch fan. Another one's a great stout fan. So I can tell you if it's stylistically on point. And a lot of times if I'm like, it's meh, I'm like, I'll go to one of them saying, well, what did you think about X stout? It was awesome. Great. I'm going to list it then. So when we list things, it's to get them so it's approved to be sold in. So different than the liquor board, because you have to do price and promotion and all the rest of it. We're going to do what's best for our guests and what our guests want in that area. I can't ask for promotion from half of this room. You're not big enough. You don't have the dollars to spend. So just getting listed is great. We might not put it on LTO. That's where we take our margin back. But when we do programming with other, we try at that point to try to make sure that it comes with an LTO so we can pass that on and help generate some sales and some traction for our guests. Because at the end of the day, everything we do goes back to our guests. And getting them excited about the brand. So that's what we look for SKUs, and it hasn't changed in over a year now. We've been doing it this way since we brought the Alcanna stores on board, and we just had to make it a lot more structured and giving people approval, and approval means that now you can go into the store and sell that SKU. So
overall, pretty similar to Troy. I do look at what Dmitry's doing, what's listed, what's not, and try to get a good mix there. Obviously, if he's listed it is one of the big sellers. So in a lot of cases, we'll try to pick that up and then run with a spec, a sister SKU, so to speak, of that brewery, and see how it does. Overall, I would say everybody would get at least one meeting with me I'll listen to the pitch, hear what you have to say. I don't, although I think on my business card, it's listed as a buyer. I don't consider myself a buyer. Like Troy, I approve it. It's not my job to sell your beer to my stores. Laura's in front of me, I'll pick on Laura. Laura comes in, we have a meeting. Okay, these SKUs are approved. It's up to your team to get in the stores. Laura comes for her next Q2 meeting. Okay, well, your rep didn't, I approved all this. It's not in any of the stores. So those SKUs are gone, and I'll see you in Q3 because you didn't do what you said you were going to do in Q1. So I don't have time. Again, it's a full room. There's somebody hot on your heels that will gladly do what you're not doing to get that beer on the shelf. Locality will always be a deciding factor, but as I alluded to earlier, with curious to see what happens with some of these breweries, who's still here in a couple of years and who won't be. It is a deciding factor, but I'm not going to sacrifice quality for locality, which I think a lot of brewers and retailers made that mistake in the past. I'm on the island. Oh, great. It's couch and hops. It's couch and barley. It's all local. It's the whatever 50-mile radius thing. Cool. But if it's all subpar product, it's a subpar beer with my postal code on it. It's not doing anybody any good. Taste profile, Troy alluded to it. I ask for way more samples than I used to. Again, I was talking to some people downstairs earlier. A subpar beer in a cool can doesn't sell anymore. You used to be able to get a few out. Consumers are working a lot harder. Dmitry alluded to inflationary pressures. Consumers are working a lot harder for that beer money that they're spending in our stores on your product. And through that, I think they've become a lot more educated. They know what a proper pill is supposed to taste like. They know that this beer is fruited because it's faulty, because it's a bad beer. You can't afford to take the hit on it. So you're trying to mask it. And there's more and more of that on the shelves, or has been in the last few years. I feel that we're kind of culling the herd a little bit here, so to speak, as the consumers have become more educated and as the buyers or approvers have become a little stricter on the parameters for what makes it onto the shelf.
Awesome. Okay, just a couple more, and then we'll get into questions. We alluded to earlier about price and inflation's brought up a couple times. What do you think with the rising costs for breweries is happening to beer pricing in the market, and how customers react to it?
Me again?
No.
Son of a. Come on. No. Everything's going up, and everything goes up in January every year. I'm used to getting all the majors to send me that this has gone up, glass has gone up, everything goes up. It just gets passed on to the consumer. Our margins are our margins. We set our margins to be competitive. I appreciate a lot of you guys, you have to raise your prices. Just make sure that what you raise it, can the market bear it? I'm not changing my margin based on what you're charging, but you do know my margin, when you raise your price, the price of the beer goes up even more because you're setting on a base target for a margin, right? So, yeah, it's interesting to see where things go, because you guys are not the only ones. All the majors, all the spirit-based companies, all the RTDs, everybody's going up. So it's okay to go up, because we also have food stores with co-op, and I get hammered all the time of like, I used to spend $200 in groceries, now it's $300. What the hell happened? I'm like, people charged more. So it is what it is. Yeah, I was scared to see what next year looks like from an inflation standpoint, from everybody, not just yourselves, the world. It's going to be, with inflation and interest rates and all the rest of it, I think it's going to be a tough go 2023. We just got out of COVID, and now we're going to have this ahead of us. So it's really what the market's going to bear. And I appreciate you guys all have to make money. So do I. And at the end of the day, we're all in this together. So, yeah.
I think it's a pretty straight answer. It is what it is. You take my margin, you take yours, I take mine. We put it on the shelf, and we hope it sells. I kind of answered this maybe a little bit with my previous answer. I think the component for producers and buyers, like the three of us up here, is when it comes to pricing, the consumer's now having to work a lot harder, and we all again need to be aware of that. I think it will aid the industry as a whole with the inflationary pressures. Maybe some of these producers that aren't making the best beer see the writing on the wall, fold up their tent, and there's less people looking for pieces of this pie. That, if anything, this pie is getting smaller as inflation increases, right? It used to be 16, 17 bucks was a high-end 4AL. Now they're north of 20 for some of them, 22 all in by the time so it's $5 a can, $6 a can for the average consumer. It's too much. So yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but we've Mid-Island adjusted a little bit. I used to play a bit with specs. Maybe sometimes specs had a higher margin, I've just flatlined the category as a whole now. Value has their own values, a different margin, imports a different margin, but craft as a whole, regardless of size or format, is the same margin to try to mitigate those differences as much as we can and try to keep that foot traffic up. But yeah, other than that, I think we just have to kind of ride out the storm here for the next 18 to 24 months and kind of reconvene and see what it looks like 2024 and beyond.
So agree to what the guy said in terms of we have profitability margins that we follow. Nothing changes there. In terms of your price goes up, our price goes up. You all know what our margins are. What I would add to that is have a plan. So just bumping up your SKU, not gonna name any SKUs or brands, but a couple of dollars, it's a big jump. And if you don't have a plan, and specific to BCL, BCL as a retailer, if you don't have a promotional plan behind it to how you're going to bring the consumer back, or how you're gonna reduce that sticker shock when he sees his favorite product $4 more now, then it's a miss. It's definitely a miss. So totally, you're running profitable businesses. You're also a very sophisticated group. I know that most of the faces that I see here, you guys know what you're doing in terms of pricing. So, and most of you do have plan on how to bring him back, right? So you do have, and you also see what works in our stores in terms of this second Q2. You've seen what we did in our stores. So use that as a plan for next year, right? So use that to when you have your prices go up, have a plan on how you got to bring it back, whether that's a price promotion, whether that's extra tastings, whether that's social media, however you want to bring it back to it. Because there will not be a lot of what do you call price resiliency with the consumer going next year. So, I mean, bacon is up in prices again, so that's pretty dramatic. So yeah, so have a plan. Have a plan how you got to promote your SKUs. And again, back to what I and Kim before me, back to that consistency. You always know that we're going to talk about promoting a SKU, price promoting a SKU in BCLS specifically. If you are struggling, right, and it sucks to see a SKU that just got forgotten, right? So there's no price promotion on it. There's nothing on it. And it just went up $3 in price. So it's a tough one. So have a plan.
Thank you. We are sophisticated. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, we're going to go to audience questions. Thank you, guys. Few ground rules. Keep it nice. Adam, you can't ask any. No, we'll only have a few. Keep it nice, and maybe not so specific to your brewery, more general questions, because this is not the time to air your grievances.
It's definitely about hazy IPA. Is this on? It's on. It's for anybody, but Dmitry, you specifically mentioned like best before dates. Just kind of curious if there's a preference for the type of date that you folks see. So like packed on, best before, whatever. But
that's the fastest he's ever given up a mic. So
no preference. So there is no preference. So we'll work with whatever you do. I'm hoping, and I've spoke to Ken about this before, I'm hoping collectively as a group, you come to some type of consistent way of showing it on your products. In terms of location, meaning we do get some SKUs that you have a best before date on a tray, on the bottom of a tray, and there's nothing on the cans, or it's on the carton, on the 12-pack carton, nothing on the cans. Once that box gets open or tossed, and the consumer and whatever happens. So in terms of format, no, most of the guys, national brands who do it, they do it in a variety of ways, and we work within that. We have a database that lets us decipher those codes. All I'm asking for is to have one that our stores can ID, can locate, and then we can explain to them from head office. We can explain to them what that means. That's all.
I think that really added it. I try to get our team to look at code date as well. I also ask you guys, when you are in our stores, to look at rotating product and making sure that it's proper. I came from breweries that make sure that you rotated your stock, so I make that apparent to make sure you're rotating the stock, especially if you got stacks on floors. It's making sure that they're rotating it, because nothing sucks more than getting a stale beer and not a fresh one. So.
Ultimately, it's in the producer's best interest to have, whether it's best before, or drink by, or packaged on, whatever format you choose. You're all here with us this afternoon to try to fight for that space on the shelf. And if somebody drinks one of your bad beers, a dated beer, you've lost that drinker, not just for that, whatever the bad Pilsner they bought, but they're looking at that brand, not that style, right? So now your brand is off their list, and they're on to the next one. So that happens a couple times. That brand is now off our shelves, and you're back to square one at the bottom of the pile, fighting all over again. I'm sure there's, like anything else, there's going to be costs incurred at brewery level, but I think it would be offset by maintaining those drinkers and maintaining quality product on all of our shelves.
Just so you guys know, there's a lunch and learn how to decode a date code. Okay, one more question. Two more questions. You're next.
Hi guys, thanks for coming. I was just wondering about formats, like if there's any kind of formats that you guys are really seeing take off, because obviously with COVID, we kind of saw like the expansion of the larger, pack size, and then with, things kind of normalizing, if there's anything that's really kind of jumping out right now, and maybe you're seeing trending, or if it's people are going back to the single serve, just any insight would be awesome.
If you're doing seasonals, do them as singles, because then it's easier for me to list it, and also to get people to try it, because when it's a seasonal, it's not a tried and true brand of yours, or brands, but not the flavor. So doing a seasonal limited release in a single can format is something I look for a lot, and I prove those ones quite regularly. I've been seeing, and I think it's just based on the major craft companies doing more of the 8-pack talls or mixer style that way seems to do well. And I guess when you guys are looking at your economics and the sticker shock, an 8-pack at a price point looks a lot more better on a price than a 12-pack. So people are looking at the price and seeing 8 and they're going with that. So I see a lot more people going the 8 mixers seem to do well for us. Yeah. And just, for myself, it's always usually trying to have, especially with the major crafts, is having a mixer pack on shelf, because sometimes people want to take a mixer to a party, right? So I only drink IPAs, but somebody else might want to have a pale ale or a lager sort of thing, right? So a hazy IPA. 9. Yeah, 9's good. Yeah, 9. Well, there was only an 8-pack, so that help answer.
Similar to what Troy said, 4AL, 8AL, 12 AR. I don't like the 15s, the 24s. Ideally, I still like the 4 AL in a box, so we can bust them and sell them as singles. That being said, there are more and more consumers that are liking the plastic top from an environmental standpoint, and there is some of you out there that are working with like the cardboard or resin kind of that are working, that are doing well as well. And some of those European 4 ales are now just coming glued together, like just like a little drop of hot glue, which is, again, from an environmental standpoint, very important, especially on the coast, and then even more so when you get out to the island.
It's, yeah, very similar to what the guys just said. The only thing I would add, there isn't a standard answer. It for us depends on opportunity. So whatever the opportunity is tied to a particular format that you're thinking that works for you guys, because we've, we participate in everything from a single up to a 30 pack or a 36 pack, right? So we have quite a large variety. So it's all about opportunity that makes sense, opportunity that has something in it for you, for us, for the consumer, yeah, and then we'll because like just today I was looking at this morning at the single can, and at the same time I was looking at 24 pack, which both of them have different purposes in our stores. So yeah, that's us.
What's your favorite color of Pack Tech? No, just
I apologize. This is mostly for Dmitry, but when you speak about your metrics for analyzing how well a SKU does, often craft beer finds new SKUs in warm sections versus fridge sections. Do you consider that at all? The difference being in private stores, they're almost always level playing field all in the fridge.
Good question. Good question. So yeah, this is a real good question. It's a fair question. It is a fair question. We don't have a separate metric right now for the cold zone SKUs and for the warm shelf SKUs. That's true. There is at some point, because then it becomes complex when the SKUs in both locations, then it becomes even more complicated. So the honest answer, I don't have an answer for it right now. The target that we employ right now is for a particular SKU on a particular formula based format. At some point we'll probably get there, because it is fair to expect the SKUs in the cold zone to do better than the SKUs in the warm shelf. We currently, when we review our planograms, we go off individual store sales when we determine what goes where. So there's already some of that work done when we create a cold zone planogram. But like at this point, if you ask me, well, what if this SKU is expected to do this at cold zone, I don't have a particular metric that would grade that SKU for the shelf. That's just, we're not there yet.
great question. If you look at your Alter app, you got I Stumped Dmitry badge now. Okay, we got one more question. Oh.
Just to follow on what you were talking about with the differences between like plastic pack techs and like cardboard and stuff like that, are you guys starting to base your decision making on sustainability choices, or are you starting to see consumer behavior be driven by it?
It's more of the latter. We're watching the consumer actively make that choice, and I foresee it becoming a deciding factor for us in the future, especially if more and more breweries start going down that route. It is one, it's just one more differentiator that a brewer can use, as opposed to the, hey, I made this cool beer, come sell it. Yeah, it's just another differentiator, and I think it will become commonplace, just like the pack techs are everywhere now.
Yeah, every community right now is different. So we're getting out of all plastic bags. We had a whole bunch that we had, but we're now done. So we're moving everything over to paper bag, just because half the communities we're in mandates has to be paper, not plastic. The one positive thing I really like about the box is on the RTD side that use those little, I call them the Red Bull cans. They are a pain in the butt to go onto a shelf, but now putting them into a cardboard box, it rolls so much nicer and have a lot less breakage. So that's a positive thing. But at the end of the day, it's I think you guys are all going to get mandated to change. And I believe that the 4-pack cap is 2024. Is that right, Dmitry? Wasn't it you guys that dictated that? It comes from the, okay, sorry, I thought it came from the liquor board, so I apologize. So I think your 4-pack top cap is supposed to be gone in 2024, from my understanding. So I'm assuming everyone's going to get on board with one type of pack size. So.
All right, I think that's all the time we have. Just want to thank the panel for taking their time to come here and talk to us.